Aloha kako! Welcome back to the Nea Papakahana Online Professional Development for our 7th grade curriculum. Let's take care of the lo'i. In this video, we'll be covering Unit 2, Ratio and Proportional Relationships. Here are the Common Core standards that will be covered in this unit. Please feel free to pause this video if you would like to read them more thoroughly. If you have a copy of our curriculum, you'll be able to find all of these standards at the very beginning of the unit. The first half of the standards come from the Common Core domain of ratios and proportional relationships, as denoted by the letters RP. The last two standards, denoted by the letters EE, are from the expressions and equations domain. The standards in this unit mainly focus on recognizing and representing proportional relationships. To do this, we must first check if a relationship is proportional. Two quantities, x and y, have a proportional relationship if the relationship can be written in the form y equals r times x. This means that if we have a value x, we can multiply it by a constant number r to find the other value y. This r is called a constant of proportionality or unit rate, and finding it is an important step in representing proportional relationships. With r, we can make a graph of the proportional relationship and interpret the points x, y. We'll pay special attention to the points 0, 0 and 1, r. Finally, we can use the properties of the proportional relationships to solve problems. We'll also use the other properties that we've learned in the past to rewrite expressions in different forms to shed light on and solve problems. The Unit 2 activity that we'll be reviewing for this video is the Module 5 Proportions and Percents activity. In this activity, we'll be learning about the uala, or the sweet potato. This vegetable is relatively easy to grow in Hawaii, and they're delicious, useful, and even considered to be pretty. We have a batch of uala in our garden that is about 125 square feet in area. In Part 1, we learned that the uala batch thrived in the winter and increased its area by 20%. Please pause the video and determine how big the uala batch is at the end of winter. Welcome back. So when the area increases by 20%, the original 100% increases to 120%. 120% of the original is 1.2 times the original, or 1.2 times 125. This comes out to 150 square feet. In Part 2, we learned that the uala did not do well in the following summer. It was so hot that 20% of the uala died. You told your neighbor that you now have 120 square feet of uala, but he did not believe you. He said if your 125 square feet batch of uala got bigger by 20%, then smaller by 20%, you should be back to the 125 square feet. Can you explain why you are right and your neighbor is wrong? Please pause the video and do the calculations. Okie dokie. In short, you do not return to the original area because 20% of the original 125 is different from 20% of the 150 at the end of winter. Let's do the calculations. If you lose 20%, then 100% goes down to 80%. 80% is 0.8, so 80% of the 150 square feet at the end of winter is 0.8 times 150. This comes out to 120 square feet of uala. In Parts 3 and 4, we talk about the appearance of the uala. In some villages on Hawaii Island, the uala is considered to be very beautiful. Traditionally, the villagers would gather their best uala and decorate the side of the road when a neighboring chief came to visit. Before the chief arrived, the villagers would put the uala on the right side of the road. Then they will move it to the other side of the road, so the uala will be on the right side when the chief left. We're going to skip Part 3. You can do it on your own, but for this video, we'll just jump to the open-ended question in Part 4. Of all the plants that you eat, which one do you think is the prettiest and why? Please pause the video and take a minute to think about this. Okie dokie, welcome back. For me, personally, I like the look of the dragon fruit. It's super exotic looking, especially the ones with the bright magenta juice. Please feel free to modify this activity to fit the needs of your classroom or your teaching style. We feel that a lot of students get confused when they are first introduced to proportions and percentages. The first point of confusion is in the conversion with percents. For example, knowing that 20% of is the same as 0.2 of. The second point is in knowing whether to use addition or multiplication. Students often need some practice to get used to the fact that 20% of is different from 20% more, and 20% more is the same as 120% of. We also have a few interesting situations, such as the fact that 50% less is actually the same as 50% of. To provide your students with more practice with calculations using percentages, it may be helpful to use our stories but modify the numbers. It may also help if students were to predict whether a number will increase or decrease according to what's stated in a word problem. For example, if we say the initial price is $80, what will the final price be if we increase it by 25%? Then we should be able to predict that whatever the answer, it will be greater than $80. If our answer comes out to be $20, then we know that we should go back and double check our work. Part of this activity is about the beauty of the Uala plant, so perhaps you can modify this activity into a project that incorporates art. The students can find a plant that they think is pretty and they can make a drawing of the plant. You can then challenge the students to describe the plants using as many mathematical concepts as they can. The students can talk about the symmetry of the plant parts, or repeated patterns and spirals, or talk about certain shapes and certain angles that frequently show up. Mahalo nui for joining us in this video. We'll see you again in our next video on Unit 3. Ahui ho!